Hey everyone, welcome back to Upside Down Data. Today I want to talk a bit about Fetch.ai and what our models here at the channel are making of this pretty explosive rally that is going through right now. So if you're not familiar with our indicators here at the channel, we have some I think give us a lot of good information about how much higher FET might be able to reasonably go before hitting the ceiling and having to at the very least start to cool off. And so I want to consult our risk model here, the upside downside potential indicator, or UDPI. So I'm showing you here the long-term version of this model. So this cares about moves that play out over months to multiple months, so more macro in its focus. And so this is the price history of FET across time. Color code is the output of the UDPI. So higher levels mean higher risk, getting up towards 5, as you can see at these topping out points. And then -5 and down towards those levels in the green, that is lower risk. That's where historically it's been advantageous to buy FET. And so you can see this has done a very good job of quantifying risk across the market, these topping out points, these good distribution points versus these good accumulation points. So let's look at what's going on right now. So I'm going to flip over to the raw output of the model to talk about this a bit more specifically. So here what I'm showing you is the long-term UDPI, so that's the white line, and then the yellow line in the background is the UDPI price. So you can see is that, when we got to these topping out points, this topping out point here in spring 21, then also back over here in fall of 21, it got up to 5 here and about 4, and then we went into the big bear market. But now we're staging a big recovery, and we're actually getting above 1, just a bit above 1 on the long-term UDPI. And who knows, we might be able to reach a little bit higher. But my thinking is that we're actually probably getting about towards the end of this current rally, at least in the short term. And the reason I say that is if we look at the short-term UDPI, which is our shorter time frame focused model, it cares about moves that play out over days to weeks, so much shorter in its time horizon. And you see that we've traveled pretty far, pretty quickly on the short-term UDPI in this rally. We started all the way down at a little bit below -3, all the way down here. We shot up, went up, we kind of got ourselves exhausted, came back down, cooled off, back down below 0 again, and then off to the races we went, now going above 4. As you can see, this is a pretty extreme level. We've only gotten there, 3 times in the past. We've gotten there once over here at the beginning of this rally, that then kind of cooled off for a while before putting in its final leg up here. And then we got up there again at the top, the all-time high for FET. And so now we're doing it again. We're all the way shooting up to that topping out point. So, it's possible that it's something like this, where it's just going to need some time to cool off before being able to move further. But, given how bearish things had generally been, unless broader markets remain bullish, I think it's probably reasonable to expect that, FET will require some time to cool off before more upside could come. Who knows, though, right? This could happen. But I think short term, short-term UDPI, short term, I think that it's quite reasonable to expect that this rally will start to peter out at around these levels, which would make sense from a technical perspective. We're getting at the points that would make sense as being resistance from a technical perspective. It would make sense for this to mark a point to start kind of having to cool off. And then, in the bullish scenario, it would just be a time to cool off sideways before being able to stage another move to the upside, sort of like what we did down here. The more bearish interpretation is that it's going to be setting in the high, will roll over and come back down. Then what you'd be hoping would happen with FET is it could set in a higher low, especially relative to here, but even relative to here, set in a higher low up here before we're able to stage more moves up from there. But really, given how bearish things have been in the crypto market, given what happened with the FTX collapse and all of those things have gone on, I think it's unlikely that FET can just go completely parabolic back and set new all-time highs immediately. Anything's possible, but who knows? FET's really been driven so far by the AI narrative, with ChatGPT really kind of kicking that off, and then more recently with Microsoft announcing, that massive investment into OpenAI. There's been a lot of hype around AI recently. I think that FET, being an AI-oriented crypto asset, has really been benefiting from that. And I think the question is, how far can that narrative take it, right? I think this kind of second pump probably has been extra fueled by that Microsoft news. Can that really push us beyond? Can this time really be different? That getting up to 4 in the short-term UDPI, it'll just ignore that and keep blasting off. Time will tell, obviously, but I'm a little bit skeptical. So this could age horribly. This could age like milk. and things, I could be proven wrong if the narrative of the AI narrative can really make this time different. But I'm not really convinced yet. So not financial advice. You should make your own decision with FET of what you think is going to happen. That's just what I'm seeing from these data. Another data point that's also giving me this thought is looking at the MBI, the momentum bias indicator. So this is an indicator, as it suggests, that looks at momentum in an asset. So being in the positive, being green is bullish. That's what will pull price up with it. Being the red is bearish, that'll pull price down with it. And that's what you see in bear markets. And so now we're just ripping off to the upside, like what we saw back here. And the MBI really is at its highest level since all the way back here in the first big run up in the bull market of 2021. Really that big bull run in the spring of 21. And so what tends to happen with the MBI, and what you'll notice, is that when you get super extended to the upside, oftentimes momentum that extreme becomes unsustainable. Being green is good, but then once you get overextended to the upside, that oftentimes will suggest a unsustainable amount of momentum, which oftentimes will correspond to tops. So it doesn't mean it's necessarily the absolute top. You'll see we actually poked a little bit further here back when that happened in 21, but the top was not far away. And so I personally think it's reasonable to think, and it would be very reasonable to expect, that this might not be so sustainable, that to continue shooting off to the upside, it's possible, but it would be new. And so you'd be thinking that this time with FET has to be more explosive, more crazy than that kind of mania phase in 21 when the whole crypto market was exploding. And I just think that's a little bit hard to see as the base case given everything that's been happening in crypto. Sure, we're in a bounce right now. Crypto market's doing quite well, surprisingly well. I think a lot of people would say that this rally has been able to take us so far. But can that really push FET much further? I'm skeptical. Again, not financial advice. You should make your own opinions, but that's just what I'm seeing with FET right now. I think when we look at our risk indicators here in the channel, if we look at the MBI, all signs are pointing to me as suggesting that the top, if not here, is near. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, but that's what I'm looking at there. So to kind of wrap us up, I just want to flip back over here to just trading view, just to look at one final piece of data, and that is the RSI, so the relative strength index for FET. And what you can see is that we are quite overextended to the upside. In fact, we're at this kind of level that we've really only seen a few other times in the past, right? We've seen it past over here, and we actually put in our highest RSI level actually in this run up here. Now, this one isn't necessarily a guarantee that this is the top, right? Because you can spend a lot of time on the RSI, pretty extreme, and still go on a little bit higher. But my interpretation of this in context of the UDPI and the MBI is that this might just act more as an indication of overboughtness right now, rather than just really bullish positive momentum that can sustain itself like we saw up here. But then, even if it would be the case that we'd be able to continue going further, I still think it's likely we'll catch at least some kind of breathing before any possible further move to the upside is possible. And that's, I think, also what the short-term UDPI is saying, is that it thinks that FET is probably going to have to catch its breath at these current price levels at the very least, but then to cool off. And so you like to see the short-term UDPI start to reset itself before that next leg could happen, kind of like what we saw here. And then what we saw on the long-term UDPI is that there was actually a little bit more room to the upside that FET had in that kind of longer-term perspective. And so it would be possible to take a breathing room further upside coming a little bit later, but I don't think there's any guarantee there. Given how bearish things had been, I think any further upside is really dependent on the broader markets remaining bullish. That doesn't really happen so much. Very reasonable to think that this could be setting in a top here. So final time, not financial advice. Really, you should form your own opinion of what you think's best, but that's just what I'm seeing. And so the data for me is so clear here that it's hard for me not to see this as it's hard for me not to be very skeptical of this run continuing at the breakneck pace that we've been going, because this has been pretty extreme upside we've seen, 184% just in this explosive move. And then if we're measuring it from the bottom, we're already up, 375%. Seems reasonable to me to think that we have to catch our breath from here. So that's just what I'm seeing. Obviously, you make your own opinions, but it'll be interesting to watch FET and how much further this AI narrative can really take it. All right, if you like the content, remember to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and follow us on Twitter. A lot of updates, better indicators, and more over there.